How to deal with MIL that either denies or deflects so she is the victim. My DH and I have been together for 8 years. At the start of the relationship, I wasn't sure if MIL liked me, but DH said she was just abrupt and didn't mean it. One example is when they came over to congratulate us on our engagement. MIL told us that her friends were coming to the wedding. When DH said no to some of them, she spent the year and a half until the wedding telling my DH that he really should invite, and DH had to keep saying no. My DH has said before that it's not worth arguing. I also took on this idea and didn't say anything. I now have a 5-week-old baby and something has changed in me. I can't accept her demanding her own way anymore. Throughout my pregnancy, my MIL never really showed any interest to me. I would show her a scan and she would say, "Oh," and carried on with whatever she was doing. Near the start of my pregnancy, we moved house, slightly further out. My parents have really helped us. They have given us stuff for the house and helped with stuff/questions about the baby. My in-laws then started making passive-aggressive comments about my parents, mainly about food as MYMIL goes in and out being healthy. They kept making comments about what my parents would do for us. At one point in the pregnancy, my in-laws volunteered to buy something for the baby. We have been given a lot from my brother and sister as they already have kids. This apparently annoyed MIL. MIL offered to buy the cot, and I said, "Thank you very much, that's really kind." MIL snapped, "Well, it's our grandchild too." I asked my parents if they could stay with us a few days after baby was born to help and for me to ask question too. They said of course, and even said to keep them informed as we might not want them there straight away. My mom came the day she was born, Wednesday, and stayed with me so my DH could go home and get some sleep. My in-laws said they would get to the hospital by 6 p.m., which could have given my dad some time with LO. The in-laws arrived at 4 p.m. and MIL was annoyed when my DH said my dad was holding LO first. When MIL was given LO, she immediately wanted photos. My in-laws then came to our house the next day when we were discharged. Thursday. They were doing to come Friday after work, but decided against it because they were going to a friend's for the weekend and didn't want to get caught at traffic. Absolutely fine by me. My parents stayed over the weekend to help. MIL then called my DH on Sunday, telling us the days they were coming round and told we, DH and I, need to realize that they stepped back because my parents were round and so they need to have their time with LO. They chose to go away for the weekend, which is fine, but then they used it to manipulate getting more of what they wanted and to make more comments against my parents. They asked if my siblings/nephews were coming over later that day and got annoyed because they would see LO before them, but they have already seen her at this point. FIL said, "Well, don't pass LO round to everyone. She is not a pass the parcel," and told us to save some of LO for them. They came over on Monday when LO was 5 days old. She was in hospital with dehydration on day 3, and I in-laws didn't not reply for ages when we text them about it. They got to the house before we came back from our 5-day app and MIL insisted that I eat before feeding LO. I am angry that I didn't stand up to her and feed LO. She then took LO when I went to pick her up, told me to eat, and then said to LO, "Isn't Mummy mean for not feeding you?" She then went on to say, "Oh, does Mummy like McDonald's? How much McDonald's are you going to have?" After saying that my family were unhealthy for having KFC, they came over again, Thursday, 8 days old. And when I went to quickly get ready, I told MIL to leave LO in her carry cot because she was sleeping and I would only be a minute. As I was leaving the room, she was leaning over LO and talking to her. I again asked MIL to leave LO alone. When I came back, MIL hands were halfway in the carry cot. I said, "What are you doing?" And she said she thought LO needed burping. I said, "Okay, I'll burp her," and MIL picked her up and put LO on her shoulder. I left the room because I was so angry so quickly and didn't want to get angry in front of my baby. I told DH who was upstairs and he went down and got LO back. MIL apologized to me in front of DH and claimed she didn't hear me. I was right next to her. We went out for lunch and I asked if she was okay. She laughed and said she was fine. Afterwards, when I was upstairs feeding LO, MIL then cried to DH and said she hadn't done anything wrong and she had never been this upset in her life. She made no attempt to talk to me. We agreed to a phone call, and when I tired to call, she texted to say she was going to a friend's house. I said okay. My DH phoned MIL because he was angry that she went out instead of making time for the call. Mil then texts me from her friend's house saying we can talk because Ditch wants her to talk. She can go into another room in her friend's house. She then texts later saying she felt the conversation warranted a private place to talk, and that's why she didn't call. When we had the call, DH and I had her on speakerphone. She kept denying what she had done when I said it, and when DH backed me up then said, accepted, it happened, but said she was joking, or she didn't hear me. She then kept calling Mike, along with FIL calling Ditch 4 days afterwards, saying how upset she was and how it meant she wasn't going to see LO. She also kept insisting that she hadn't done anything wrong and that I need to accept how she speaks because she isn't going to change. Now we are going to in-law's house for lunch tomorrow, and I feel on edge. I feel that I can't leave the room because MIL would rather wake her up to hold her than let her sleep. Plus, MIL will probably play victim if I say anything. I don't know how to set boundaries without being told I'm keeping LO for MIL, or that I'm being too sensitive.